We know mobile has changed everything. In the context of marketing and media, at least in digital media, we look at ubiquity as when a platform reaches 1 billion unique users using the platform with regularity. Now, the radio on the far end took us, 72 years to become ubiquitous, 67 years for the TV. The mobile smartphone took just under 5 years. This is why when you see the Ubers and the Amazons of this world, when they celebrate 1 billion users, it's because it represents scale. It represents impact. So even for us as retailers, I often have retailers talk to us about how many customers they have on their CRMs, and I think a lot of them are sitting in the millions, and I think in South Africa, 1 million is a good benchmark there. But that indicates scale. How many apps you have downloaded indicates scale. So just bear that in mind when we talk about digital ubiquity and scale. The mobile device is not something we can afford to ignore. We know that there are over 3.5 billion people connected today. Everybody in this room pretty much has a smartphone device. And what I love about talking about mobile in the South African context is that we are a mobile-first economy. So I'm going to walk you through why this matters and why we shouldn't ignore this fact. We know, based on Canalys data, that there are nearly 30 million, as of end of 2018, 30 million connected smartphone devices in South Africa. Smartphone penetration in this market is actually far greater than some of the much more mature markets. In fact, we're sitting at close to, I think, 70% for smartphone penetration in this market. We know that over half of adults in South Africa have an active smartphone. To put it into additional context, did you know that there are more people in South Africa with an active smartphone than they have a running toilet? Okay. I always have to say that because when we look at how we even think about targeting our customers using data such as LSM-based data, where the marker of your living standard measure is whether or not you have a running toilet, when we're talking about how we engage customers, we need to be talking about what is the entry point of engaging them. How do they come online? Your customers they don't go online. They actually live online. And some of the data that shows this for us is how the connected device. We have research we do every year, which is called the Google Consumer Barometer. It's public data. If you just Google it, you can see for different markets how we compare with Asia, the States, and other African markets. We don't necessarily do it globally. We only do it in markets where we have access to regulatory approved data. But if we compare ourselves to China, and some of us might say to ourselves, like, why do we compare ourselves to China? China is one of the fastest growing economies in terms of retail and e-commerce, number one. Anybody want to guess what is the percentage of their e-commerce of share of retail sales currently? Well, latest published stat. It's almost 45%. 45% of it is mobile digital commerce in China today, okay? That is incredible, and it's still growing. In fact, last I looked, China's economy in terms of e-commerce is bigger than the US. A lot of the times, what I find is that retailers in this market look at Europe and they look at the States as markers of excellence. No problem with that. But my encouragement for you today is have a look at what is happening in China, because when we as Google look at, in this market, the trajectory of mobile penetration, the type of infrastructure and what can I call, consumer landscape tenants that we see in the market, we have a lot more similarities with APAC or Asia Pacific than we have with EMEA and the States. So pivot to actually observe what is happening there. So we're comparing ourselves now with China. As you can see, the smartphone is the entry point to going online. We are actually ahead of the US. Some of you might be shocked by that stat because you might be saying, the US, really? We're like, in fact, when we look at Black Friday data, the level of interest in South Africa is higher than anywhere in the world. We are still number one. We've been number one for 3 years in a row. For real. This is insane. This is showing us that the market has a leading indicator of digital intent and maturity. Now, when we look at it further in terms of, fine, these mobile devices, 30 million of them in the market, sweet. Where are people spending their time, their share of time? This should matter to you because as marketers, you want to chase the eyeballs, right? You want to get to where the people are, the fundamentals of marketing. This is TNS Connected Life data that was published in 2017. I don't yet have the 2019 data. They haven't done it yet. This was 2017. Share of time, as you can see, the big bubble in the purple, across different segments in the market in South Africa, is predominantly skewed towards mobile. So the question we have to advertisers is, how available are we to these customers? And how can we actually use this data? One of the ways we look at this data is when we monitor searches. When you go online and you search, you're searching with intent. And your customers are doing the same thing. They're looking for products you sell. We track the desktop searches versus the mobile searches. And in South Africa, we had what we call the mobile moment. And we had it actually, we were one of the first emerging markets to have this trend, where the searches that are happening on mobile were higher than the searches happening on desktop. That trend has continued since 2016. And as you can see there, the gap is just continuing to grow. Now, the implications for retailers is, are we available to those customers who are searching on mobile devices? Are we actually physically there? During the break, do yourselves a favor and search for a product yourself. You see if your ad shows up. We don't have to do that right now. But on the break, I'll encourage you to do it, because if you're not visible there, your customers expect you to be online. In fact, some of the research we've done in the States and in the UK shows us that customers expect, even if you have a physical store, that you should have a presence online. And if you don't surface online, they presume you've got nothing in store. So you're out of the consideration set entirely just by not being available online.